right, the 2023 NFL free agency, for all intent and purposes, is kaput. All teams, all fans, and every eye is focused on this draft that is coming up fast. Free agency and the draft, as we all know, is the major place where teams get better than they were the year before. Now, things can happen through training camp, where you pick up players, and through preseason all the way up into week one. And then you got injured players through the season, and they get replaced. And then it goes all the way deep into the season with the trading deadline. But free agency and the draft is the key areas, is the bulk of when the good things, or bad things if they screw it up, happen. And so I want to cover the AFC East with the Dolphins, the Bills, the Jets, and the Pats, and kind of go where these teams are at after free agency, how they kind of look going into this draft, and kind of make a pecking order at the end where they are currently and show strengths and weaknesses of these teams so all fans of the AFC East can get a better understanding of where their team's at and what their chances are. We're all evaluators. I'm the monkey behind the camera, so I got a little bit more skin in the game because I do it for a living. But even if you're talking to your friends, you're at the bar, you're putting comments here, whatever, even in your own heart where you're trying to determine, is this my year for my team? You're an evaluator, and you need good information. You can't know every team your particular team is playing that season, but you can know your team and have a real good feel or understanding of your division opponents. I love Sun Tzu's The Art of War. Been reading it for 30 or 35 years. Every year I kind of glance it over again. I was going to use it in this podcast, and then I saw this tweet, I know now because there's a bird in the corner, by yards per pass. If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself, but not the enemy, for every victory you gain, you will also suffer a defeat. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. Sun Tzu's The Art of War. So, if we want to be good evaluators, we have to know ourselves and at least know our division opponents. And so that's my aim here. So, savvy, comprendez-vous. This is Curtis saying thanks for stopping by. I want to give you a shout out. Shout out to Ace Bread, my sponsor, because without you, without them, this show ain't going down. Ace Bread's betting software is the premier white label platform for bookies to manage their players and grow their sportsbook operation. Click the link in the description below to get set up in minutes. Ask for the Curtis promo and get a special introductory discount. All right, so we'll quickly go over the amount of picks each team has and the high points in their free agency. Obviously, more picks and higher picks gives you a better chance to have an impact. And we'll go over the main players that they picked up, each team, and kind of give it a small little grade. So you can see here, when you take a look at this image, Patriots got a ton of picks, Dolphins not so much, and the Bills and the Jets have a full complement, sans their 7th round pick. But I forgot the Dolphins got a third for Devontae Parker in a trade with New England last year, and that does two nice things for this Dolphin fan. Takes one pick away from the Patriots and gives one to us. So the Dolphins have, I think, made the most moves. They have a pretty full roster of, we'll go over some issues they do have, but that second and third is a big, big difference than just a second. So they do have potential to nicely upgrade their roster. Bills and the Jets. Jets now might lose one or more for the Rodgers trade, but they got ammo even if Rodgers does come. Bills have plenty of ammo, and Bean does a good job drafting along with the Jets. And in the Patriots, they've had terrible, terrible drafts for years, but the last 2 years, they have really hit the jackpot. And with all these picks, it could be dangerous for us AFC East fans of all the teams. So everybody can get better in a substantial way. There's enough picks there to really help every team out. So it's going to be a big deal how these teams draft. Now, the AFC East, Bills just signed Damian Harris. I think they got to upgrade that run game. Harris is a darn good back, but he has an injury history, and I don't know if that injury history makes him a better back than Singletary. A little bit more physical, but the injury thing is kind of a little bit of concern, but a nice pickup. Sherfield, very underrated player, made so many big plays for us. Connor McGovern, I got from Dallas. That was solid. Quisenberry, they brought him back. I think he can play. Milano, they extended. Dane Jackson, they brought back. And Poyer is huge for 2 years. I think they did a pretty fine job with very limited funds. Now, the Dolphins, they traded, they spent. Mike White, I thought, is great from the Jets. Takes one from them and helps us with a pretty solid backup. The entire running back crew was brought back as free agents. He let them go and bring them back. Berrios is a nice signing because it doesn't mean that Hill and Waddle have to catch returns if you want some pop. So that was a big deal. I'm not too high on Salbert or Feeney. Malik Reed is a nice addition in the run defense. They just brought back Van Ginkel. Very stout and deep front by the Dolphins. David Long is the guy to pull together that secondary and front. And he is a huge signing. In some ways, I feel he's almost as big as Ramsey. As you can see, they obviously picked up. Huge addition. I think he's going to take over as CB1 for Miami. Some people are poo-pooing the addition. I don't see it that way. Needham, they brought back. He's a starter. He's going to be fighting for Kohu. He's going to be bolstering a deep secondary as well as a deep front. Dolphins did a ton of work, ton of good work. Elliott, I like too. They needed mirror safeties for a Fangio scheme, and Brandon Jones didn't kind of fit that. He does. He's solid. He brings depth. Dolphins did a phenomenal job in free agency, although you'll see there's two big gaping holes, but that second, third round pick can play that out. Now, the Patriots, they got tons of picks. They brought tons of guys in. They've got a pretty solid roster. James Robinson is a physical kind of guy that fits their scheme perfectly. I like that addition. Juju Schuster is a better pop player than Myers was. I like Jacoby better as the route runner and consistency guy, but there is more pop here. Ferentz, Anderson, and Reif, solid players. Good filling out that offensive line. You don't want your offensive line breaking down. I still think teams need to have 9 on the offensive line. That 8 is pretty scary, but this is a good job of bringing depth. McMillan, they brought back. Wilson re-signed. Jonathan Jones, they re-signed. He's that 4-3 little guy that they can put on, do some man on Hill and Waddle. That's critical in the matchups against the Dolphins. I like that. And Peppers is coming back with McCourty gone. It's essential. This was a nice free agency as well. And then the Jets, Lazard, he's the receiver. That's going to be the security blanket with Rodgers as we expect him to come. I guess we have to kind of figure Rodgers coming in this free agency, but we don't know when. Schweitzer's not bad. Solomon Thomas, not so certain why they brought him back. Williams makes big plays, and he's a good pass rusher, but he also makes big mistakes. Hot and cold player. Clark was a nice addition. They needed help at safety. Zerline and Morstead, those are good players to bring back as well. I think, especially when you add in Rodgers with the Jets, every team did a ton. But all these teams still have weaknesses. We're going to go over, and it's going to make this draft so critical. But when I look at it, Rodgers to the Jets is tremendous. And Ramsey and Long is tremendous as well. Big additions to the Dolphins. Those are the 3 biggest additions, aside from obviously the re-signings. Milano is huge too, but I'm just talking about new players. Those are my 3 biggest signings, and I think I liked a lot of stuff in there, but those are my 3 biggest pop signings. So now that we got that all under the hood, let's go and take a look at each team's roster to see what's been done, what it looks like now, and where the holes are. Now that we got that out of the way, let's take a look at the teams and where we can see the strengths and weaknesses are post-free agency. This way we can get a good estimation of where the teams are probably going to head or where they need to head come draft time. Now, I talked to a very smart guy, and he says, every time you put these images up, you got 50 colors and all these symbols, and it's like, I can't see it. It's on my phone. It's too small. So I'm going to kind of do the same thing I've always been doing, but I'm going to streamline it. There's going to be 2 colors, all in boxes. Green means good. Red means either bad or a question mark. A question mark could turn good, or maybe not, but it is a question mark, so it'll be in red. So green is good, red is bad. Easy, right? So we're going to do the Bills first, And Poyer coming back really solidifies that top. Milano inside is a big, big help. I mean, those three guys really do a great job holding together the front and the secondary. But really, the linebacking group took a hit without Edmonds. He was so big and fast. A lot of them play that big nickel. It's going to be interesting to see how they handle that, whether they go into the season with what they got, or they draft somebody or find somebody in free agency. But they're going to need to. Now, I could have put a red square around Von Miller because I don't know how quickly he's going to return or how good he's going to return. Last year, White came back from surgery and wasn't the same, so we don't know. But I didn't put it there because Von Miller is a superhuman kind of guy. But you never know. But still, that front is a good-looking front. Without him, though, it's kind of a little scary. You got the red box around Espinosa and Basham. Good pass rushes, but they're not three-tool guys. And if Miller's not there, I don't really feel comfortable as a Bills fan that they're going to replace him successfully. And then White, he came back, but he wasn't the same. Is he going to bounce back and be 100%, 90%? We don't know. I had to put a box around him. Johnson's a good player, solid second corner. And Jackson, you know, he's better than what he had last year. Just had a little struggling season. I think he's going to bounce back, but I had to put a box around him as well. And then Elam, they drafted, good man guy, but he's still growing. It's hard to become a corner in this league. Benford, zone guy, had some successes but struggles. So they're going to need to really step up. It's going to be big for them. It's year 2. Chances are good, but you never know. So I had to put a box around them. Defense has a lot of strengths. You could see if all those corners could turn into greens, be very, very ferocious. I would still have to be concerned about that middle linebacker. Now, obviously on offense, you got Allen all world. To me, he's been held back by philosophy and poor offensive line. This guy on with a better offensive line and a more balanced attack would be unstoppable. He has Dawkins, thankfully, good left tackle. Didn't play as good as he had in the past. I think there's reasons for that. I've gone into the past, the imbalance, the constant passing. So it was just interesting to see what the philosophy is, whether it will help him out. But he needs help. McGovern's okay. Morris is okay. Bates is okay. Brown, not so good. He really looked good in his rookie season, but he had injuries, didn't really look good last year. They're going to need help. They brought Quisenberry back. They're going to need more bodies. Depth is critical. This is the biggest glaring weakness on the team. And then Cook, this is before they signed Damian Harris. I like now. I would turn it to green now with Harris, Cook, and Hines. My concern was 2 small fries. Are they going to play fun ball, or are they going to kind of bring some balance? Harris could mean that having some kind of serious consideration, becoming balanced. So that would be green for me, even though it's red right now. Knox, so good. You know, not the greatest run blocker. I could see them maybe getting a tight end in the draft. Darnell Washington on this team would be brutal. I think on any team he'd be brutal. But maybe they go tight end, but probably not. Diggs, unbelievable. Davis, he had a down season, but I think he's going to bounce back. And Hardy, I'm not really big on him being the third guy. There's going to be some depth issues, but, you know, do they bring Beasley back? I don't know. We'll see. But overall, this team, the offensive line is the most glaring issue, and middle linebacker. If they improve those positions, the Bills could be back to reclaim continue their AFC East dominance. But if they do not get this offensive line right, they go back to fun ball, they don't improve this middle linebacker position, and these cornerbacks that are in red don't step up, it could get dicey. We'll have to see what the draft does for them. Now, the Dolphins, they got lots of green, but they invested so much. They're still entering the peak of their talent. So, not being a homer, just telling it like it is. Holland, Long, Baker, Phillips, Wilkins, Sealer, Chubb, Kohu, Ramsey. And then you add Malik Reed, and I didn't have any here, Van Ginkel, and then Emmanuel Ogbah. And then you got Tyndale, who they drafted in the 3rd round. See, he's a backup guy. And then you got Riley. This is a deep and talented group. I put the red box around Howard because of injury. He's always going to be dangerous by baiting guys and getting picks. But his injury, he was not himself, and I don't know if he can stay healthy. It'll be very interesting to see. But Needham was a nice pickup. He really adds help in case Howard can't play. Kohu could get out to the edge, and Ramsey could be the number one, and then Needham can come in and play that nickel. Noah, he needs to be cut unless some miracle happens. He's kind of an issue. I put Elliott there in the red because I'm uncertain how he's going to play with this scheme and how he's going to play with these players, and will he actually be able to mirror him? I think he will, but I had to put the red there because it's a bit of uncertainty. Now on offense, sort of similar like the Bills, but not to the same degree. Talent on the edges with Waddle and Hill and Wilson. Better talent over there than with the Bills. And then, Tua, I could put a red square around him because of the injury history, but I just didn't want to talk about it. It's like been beaten to death. We all know that's the thing. If he's healthy, he's going to play well. Mostert, he's a good starter when he's healthy, but he can't take the load, and that bothers me because it's a big step down to Gaskin and Wilson and Ahmed. I mean, I like them as backups, so I gave him the red, but they're not really going to carry. Mostert's the guy who can make the most on his own in zone stretch. And then I put White and Thompson over there. They're solid backups for Tua. I like what they can do. I don't like them as starters, but they're solid. And then, I put Saubert and Tanacon, the tight ends, in red because I'm not high on them at all. And Easy, they've drafted him in the 4th round. He's a receiver. He didn't do anything last year. Will he do something this year? It'll be interesting to see. But receiver is a very tough position. But then Smythe, he's got the red box along with Jackson. There's a big problem with the blockers. Dolphins have so much talent, but the blocking units are curious. Jackson, 1st round pick, didn't get the 5th round tender. He's not very good. I kind of like, you'll see in the box over here, Robert Jones and Lamb, the backups for Eichenberg. Jones, the backup for Eichenberg, and Lamb, the backup for Jackson. But, they're not excellent. And then Smiley has struggles to block at all levels. He's okay. He's okay in the pass game. Our tight end is a very weak unit. And there's a security blanket for a quarterback, which is specifically important for a guy like Tua. But we have Hunt and we have Williams, who are excellent together. Great tandem, second best tandem on the offensive line in the division. Eichenberg is a disaster. Unless miracles happen, he's going to be a disaster again. And then my man, Tehran. Tehran's unbelievable. He can be injured and still play amazing, but he'll likely miss a couple of games. If he only misses a couple of games, it's still going to be huge for the Dolphins because he changes everything. I could have put a red box around him for his injury history, but I'd never do that to my man, Tehran. So overall, Dolphins have a lot of potential, but there's some glaring weaknesses that clearly I think they must address in the draft. So now the Patriots. Patriots have loads of green and some strong red as well. Phillips, Duggar, and you see the green box over there with Jabril Peppers to the left. They've got an excellent top 3 safety group. Jonathan Jones is a great addition to their cornerback group. They got Jones at the left corner. Jones at the right corner is the Jones squad. These guys are all solid to good. They play well together. Not great, but this pass defense was excellent last year. Brian, I don't know too much about him, but he's not graded too well over here. Now, as far as the rest of the Patriots defense, they're really underrated. Jennings and Barmore, these are good players. Barmore just needs to stop the run better, though. That's one of the big problems. Ukele or whatever, he's not too good, and Barmore can't stop the run. Good at rushing the passer. If he steps up in his 3rd year and is a full tool defensive tackle, this defense will be very scary. Or if they add somebody in the draft. They got plenty of picks. Wise Jr., Judon Wise Jr. plays the edge, but this is the nickel look. Both these guys can be edge players. Uche, Bentley, and Tavai. These guys are all great edge and over-the-top linebacker players. This front is so dangerous and talented, but they need to resolve this defensive tackle situation. Barmore could do that, though. We'll see. I think they're probably going to add somebody in the draft. Now, Parker was a nice addition for them. He had a good year last year. He's not great. Schuster's got pop, but he's not great. Bourne's okay. So they need more receiver help. But they got Bowden Jr., who they got from the Dolphins. They released him. I like this kid. I don't know why he hasn't popped. He's just a little utility guy, can come from the backfield, do some nice stuff. Thornton was a guy who we thought who was really going to step the way he looked in preseason. He had some okay regular season, but he's a little fragile, still learning the game. And Gesicki is a big ad, so I had to put a green box around it because there's a lot of potential there. Now, Stevenson is one of my favorite backs. This guy, I think, is just entering his prime. He's unbelievable, and he's got a great backup group. I talked about Robinson, Taylor, Strong, Montgomery, and Harris. These guys most of them are pretty good pass blockers. They can do something as a stable of backs. This is a deep and talented run group. And when you look at Andrews and Onwenu, they are the best tandem. They're unbelievable. They anchor this offensive line, but there's some red around the rest of the offensive line. Brown is good, but he's big, but not great in the run game. Can get beat. It'll be interesting to see if he can bounce back, raise his level. He's solid, but not great. Strange, they overdrafted him or reached high on him. He's pretty good, but he's a little underdeveloped. It'll be interesting to see how much he steps forward. If he can step forward and get into that average or slightly above average range, it's going to be big for them. Reef and the rest they brought in. Reef is good, but these guys are okay and, a little bit long in the tooth. Nice additions, but I think they're going to add in the offensive line as well. And then Henry, I gave him a circle. He's good in the pass catching, but he can't pass block. Along with Gesicki, I think they're going to add tight end as well. And it could be, Darnell Washington, who is like shades of Gronk. Maybe Belichick wants to go back to the past. Or maybe there's some guys in the third and fourth round they want to pick up who can run block pretty good and pass block okay to fill in, to help out with Henry and Gesicki. It'll be very, very interesting to see how that plays out. Now, the Jets, they're the wild card. I think if they get Aaron Rodgers, I know a lot of people are poo-pooing the addition of Rodgers, but I think they're nuts. Whitehead and Clark are solid over the top. But when you look what's in front of them, they got Mosley. He's a good cover linebacker. They re-signed Williams. Like I said, he's a hot and cold player. That's a square. It could be a mistake or it could be a good deal. But when everybody else, the whole boundary cornerback situation, nickel cornerback situation, and the front is unbelievable for the Jets. You got Reed Jr., Carter II, Lawson, Williams, Myers, Johnson II, and Gardner. These guys are so talented, and it doesn't make the job of Whitehead and Clark too hard, and these guys are good enough. The linebacker situation does need help. They might address that, but depending on how many picks they lose from Rodgers, I don't see it. Huff, Clemens, and Eccles are all good depth players and role players for this Jets defense, which is excellent. Need to stop the run a little bit better, though. And I think the linebacking group could help them with that. But it's the offense, obviously, starting with Wilson. If Wilson is the starter for the season, they are doomed. But it's clearly going to be Rodgers at some point. You gotta believe that. And that's going to turn from red to bright green. And then, the receiving group, you got Lazard, who works well with Rodgers. Wilson's an unbelievable pick. This guy's going to be a star if he's not a star already. And then Corey Davis, I'm not sure if they're going to keep him or let him go because of money. Who knows? We'll see what they're going to do. There's talk about OBJ, and that means they can move off Davis and put that money on OBJ. More, they might need a little bit of help and depth in that receiving group. Hall and Michael Carter, I love these two guys. Breece Hall was a good pick. A lot of people weren't sure about it. He was unbelievable to the injury. Can he stay healthy? Carter is an excellent, excellent utility guy to work with Breece Hall. Uzma, I like him a ton as a secondary tight end. Tight end Conklin's okay. Not a great run blocker. Okay. So I don't see them going tight end. Don't think they got enough picks, even though this is a deep draft for it. But it's the offensive line, which is the big question. Tomlinson took a huge step down from San Fran. Schweitzer, okay. I'm surprised they haven't brought Connor McGovern back. That guy is really excellent. Maybe they're waiting until after they sign Rodgers. Vera Tucker's a great pick, but he got injured, played tackle, could play guard. Can he stay healthy? Really the biggest high point on this offensive line, but a question mark. Mitchell, young guy, where's he going to head to? Didn't show too much last year. Then giant Mekhi Becton. His contract here, he's dropping tons of weight. Can he stay healthy? If he's healthy, it changes what this offensive line does. But can they bank on it? I think they're going to invest in this offensive line. So that's really how you see it right now. All these teams, when you really look at them, they're on the verge. The draft is going to be critical for each one of these teams. I have to think if any of these teams go bust in this draft, it's going to hurt them big time, cripple them, because this will be a gauntlet race in the AFC East. All right, so let's do the pecking order and kind of see where these teams fit. All right, originally when I came up with the idea to do this thing, I was going to lay out the pecking order of each team. But the more I dug into it, the more uncertain I became. I would put one team at the top, and then I was like, well, what if this team does this? And it just kept moving and moving and moving. And I really like what the Dolphins did. I really like the position they're in. To be able to push the Bills like they did those last two games at home said a ton. They added Ramsey and Long, and they brought back a ton of guys. But those glaring weaknesses of the blocking units, if they're not rectified, I think Miami will do well, but will it be well enough? As the season progresses and guys get beaten and injured and you get ugly games and you're playing all this fun ball, if the Dolphins haven't got up to a hot, super hot start where they can drop a couple late and still be in a clear lead, that means they're going to have critical games in ugly weather, and fun ball does not work in ugly weather, especially when you're playing quality teams like the Jets, the Bills, and the Patriots. So what they do at that guard, the left guard, right tackle, and blocking tight end position, as well as adding some quality depth on that O-line, is going to be a big determinant for me. If they do, to me, they are the clear front runner as far as talent and potential. But it's an if. We will see about that. And Bills, I've had respect for them for years. I've been doing podcasts. He's a Finn fan. How good they are, how good Allen is. They have a bunch of serious questions. But when you got Allen and you've got that defense and you've got Diggs, the potential is there if you see some rising up of some of these young guys and being hits on another good draft and hits the critical areas, most notably offensive line. That's the thing. That's the narrative that kept hitting me. Each of these teams have questionable offensive lines. Whoever does the best with those offensive lines, because every one of these teams can get after the quarterback and has a good defense. So it's not just your defense, it's the guys facing that defense on the offensive line that really is critical. So for me, philosophically, the Bills have to move towards pass balance. They've got to get some better blockers in there, and they got to do a little something for that middle linebacker spot, or they're going to struggle to be in that big nickel. So I'm not certain. There's a lot of questions there, and it's not that they can't fill them. They could add maybe one guy in the draft on the offensive line. They could find that middle linebacker and get some guys in the back for depth on that offensive line, maybe in that wide receiver spot. And then, Benford and Elam and White, the rookies could step up and White could bounce back to his pre-injured self. And they would be super, super tough because Allen is a nightmare. But I don't know because of all those surrounding questions. So I have them hovering in that second to third spot as far as potential. Now, Patriots. Jones is the big, big question with all those picks. Now, if they wet the bed on their draft as they've done in the past, it ain't going to matter. They need help. They need help on the offensive line. They need some more potential, some more talent in the receiving group. I'm not so sure about that tight end group because there's no blockers. If you want to run the ball all day, you need a inline blocking tight end. They get Darnell Washington. That's going to be scary. Let's hope that doesn't happen, I guess, unless you're Pats fans. And then that interior D lineman. This defense is going to be unbelievable. It was so good last year. They should have won 2 to 3 more games, but they totally had these crazy, ridiculous plays. So for me, they're vying in that second and third spot. And then you'll say, Curtis, what about the Jets? Well, Jets are in the bottom. They're in the bottom until they get Rodgers. Even if they don't get Rodgers and they find, Matt Ryan or whoever, they're still going to be dangerous. But they're going to have a hard time competing with these other teams through the course of the whole season. You need to be on top of your game. But if Rodgers comes in, if Rodgers makes it to the Jets, and they've been drafting well for a couple of years now, if they have another good draft, even though they're going to lose some of those picks, I've got to put them vying for first as far as potential and at least second. I think they'll be better than the Bills. I think they could be better than the Dolphins, although the Dolphins have so much depth. I think they got more depth than the Jets. But again, all it takes is Tehran going down and the scales would flip. So I got Dolphins clearly the head of the talent pool, but they've got the biggest question mark weaknesses with Tehran, the offensive line. But then Bills, they got a lot of question marks, but they have Allen. But they're in that second and third spot. Now, if all these things pan out, the philosophy change, the offensive line, they find guys, and, a lot of these question marks bounce up, they could easily, obviously, be number one again. And then Patriots. There's a lot of question marks, but they wrap around. Can Jones be the guy? Can they find a good draft again with all those picks? If they do, I don't see them being first no matter what, even though they could actually end up being first. I'm talking about potential with talent. But they could end up first, but they're clearly in second and third. I think they could surpass the Bills. But lastly, as I said, Jets and Aaron Rodgers could upend everything in this division. He's not coming there to be a bum. Guy can still play. This team is very good. They need to get Rodgers in there and get this offensive line together because Rodgers, you could see last year in the first couple of games when his offensive line went down, quarterbacks are made by their offensive line. And even the great Rodgers, he would look bad. He would still do good, better than anybody they saw last year, but it wouldn't be enough. So if Rodgers gets in there and they can get enough offensive linemen in here and maybe even bring OBJ. I mean, just imagine they have all those guys and they have a draft. They add 1 or 2 linemen. Becton, he stays healthy, stops eating cheesecake all day. And you got OBJ and Rodgers along with that crazy defense. To me, if everything plays out, every single team does everything right, Jets are going to be number 1 with a 1B Dolphins, and then it would be Patriots and the Bills in that second spot as far as potential talent. Anything could change as the season goes with injuries and just not getting the right chemistry and guys just playing really well. Allen, like I said, he can do anything at any moment. He could win any game. But so that's how I see it. I try not to waffle here. It is so hard to really kind of find out what these teams do, but it's all about the draft, guys. All 4 of these teams could be monstrous if they have a good draft. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed. I kind of got meandering towards the end because I just keep going back and forth. This is going to be an amazing season for the AFC East if it all plays out. And I hope it does. I hope Rodgers does go to the Jets. I hope every team hits on their picks and the best man wins. It's going to be so much fun from a football lover standpoint. Of course, I might also hope that everybody but the Dolphins totally wets the bed and the Dolphins win the Super Bowl. That'd be nice too. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed. Catch you next time. Be well. See you soon. online sportsbook today by getting signed up with acebread.com service that'll allow you to book action on sports from all around the world.